how are you going to take care of 3 children on your own? I didn't know what to say. Just the last 5 years, it just seems like things have gotten really, really hard. Hi everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today I am going to do a get to know me, get to know our family type video. We are still fairly new here on YouTube, but with the influx of followers, I figured now would be a perfect time to do a get to know us video. Sit back, relax, grab a drink. So before we even get started, let me just introduce myself. I was watching some of my older videos and realized that I had not even introduced myself. So my name is Danae, and I am a single mom of 3. My oldest is Jace, she's 13. A son, Preston, who is 8 or almost 8. And then I also have my youngest, Taven, who is 4. And each of them have different abilities. They are all differently abled. And with that being said, both Jace and Preston have both been diagnosed with ADHD. Preston has also been diagnosed with autism. He's very particular about, certain textures and foods, and he does not like to deviate from our normal. And so it makes our day-to-day really difficult sometimes. And as much as I try to keep things as stringent and get to where there's not a whole lot of wiggle room, each day it's kind of different, because there are days when he's cooperative. I have no problem getting out the door on time in the mornings. He's not giving me a hard time at all. But then there's other days where it's from the moment he wakes up, it's a battle. And then I get him dropped off at school, and then the moment we get him picked up from school and into bed, it's a battle. There's so many people are like, oh, everybody's always throwing these titles around. I didn't want my kids to have these labels. That was the biggest thing when Jace was diagnosed at 6 years old. I did not want her labeled. I didn't want her on medication. I fought so long to keep her off of medication. But it got to a point to where not only was she, putting herself in danger, she was also hurting other students. She was also hurting other kids. She was impeding, education in the classroom for herself and her peers. I was getting calls daily from JC school. And my youngest, Taven, who again is 4, he has Down syndrome. And I did not know he would have Down syndrome until he was born. And so before having him, I was already a single parent. I had already determined, when Taven was born, I was going to have him go to the same daycare that Preston was going to at that time. Preston was going to be getting ready to start pre-K. I had already spoken with the daycare, had already gotten things established. And, Taven, once I got ready to go back to work at 8 to 12 weeks postpartum, I already had things set aside for him and what was going to be happening. But then, of course, once he was born, all of that changed. These plans that I had already established and had in my mind, okay, this is what we're gonna do, all went out the window. Taven is born with 3 copies of the 21st chromosome. There are 3 types of Down syndrome, and he has trisomy 21, which is the most common form of Down syndrome. No one in our family has it. It's not something that he got from me. It's not something he got from his dad. It's completely random. Both the boys have the same dad. So it's not even oh, well, maybe one of the kids have something like that too. And no, and it's the first time that I've ever encountered. When I had Taven, there was a lot of fear that was instilled in me, because once he was born, it was these nurses and the social workers at the hospital were, he has Down syndrome, he's predisposed for obesity, he's more likely to have certain types of cancer, he's more likely to have a heart condition, he's more likely to have issues with his hearing and his vision. He had sometimes, they often don't speak. People with Down syndrome oftentimes, have difficulty walking and things. They have a shorter lifespan as well. And so with all of these things, I was scared. And I will never forget, there was a social worker that came in, and she, was asking me questions. She's like, you're a single mom of 3 now. One of them having Down syndrome. How are you going to take care of 3 children on your own? I didn't know what to say. I just bawled. I cried and cried and cried because that's honestly how I felt in that moment. I felt very bombarded with all this information. Like oftentimes when you tell people, oh, my child has autism, or oh, my child has Down syndrome, they're like, oh, I'm sorry. Why? Why? Why are you sorry? Like, especially when I tell them about Taven's Down syndrome, like, why are you sorry? Like Taven is like the sweetest baby you could ever meet. And, he's nonverbal. He still babbles like a baby. But we know what he means. Like, he understands us. Like, he has attitude for sure. He has his own little personality. When I had Taven, the first thing I did was go to YouTube, because YouTube is something that I've always gravitated towards. I've always watched, YouTubers, and I watch YouTube more than I watch TV. And so there are some YouTubers that I have regularly watched for over 10 plus years, and so when I had Taven and I had no clue about Down syndrome, I felt lost. I was like, let me go on YouTube and see if there's anyone that maybe has a channel that I can watch. I can learn more about Down syndrome, see how their day-to-day is. There were some channels that I found where it might have been someone had posted a video about their child with Down syndrome like 5 years before, you know what I mean? But they weren't like consistently posting content. Actually, I did find a channel that also has a son with Down syndrome, but their son was not born until about 2 months after Taven was born. Taven was born in August of 21, and I believe their son was born October of 21. And so they already had a family channel, but then once they had their son, who also had a birth diagnosis, I tuned in and was like, okay, I'm curious to see how they're navigating things, But other than that, there were no other channels. There were no other sources in real life, in real time to watch and kind of get feedback on things. That's where this channel comes in. I felt like, in that moment, it would have really have helped me to have had a family that looks like me, first of all, understands the struggle of having a special needs child. Even today, I still deal with a lot of guilt, a lot of mom guilt, and this grief of a life that I had envisioned for myself and for my kids. And so oftentimes I think about Taven and what his future is going to look like. Taven's condition, like, that is lifelong. Like, that doesn't go away. He doesn't outgrow it. Like, that's just something he's going to have to live with. He's done a lot of therapies. And with him having Down syndrome, like, there's so many different sources out there. Now, I'm in a ton of Facebook groups. I've met a lot of great families, a lot of moms and dads, and it's just, it's such a huge community, but it still doesn't take away from that feeling of, am I doing enough? I kind of want this channel to be kind of like a soft place to land for other moms that maybe are kind of in that new diagnosis spot where I was when I had Taven, and felt like they had no one. People who maybe are in a position where they don't know any one person with Down syndrome or any other special needs, just where we can build community, not just for special needs, but also mothers in general, being a single mother, because although, being a special needs mom has its own struggles, being a single mom makes it 10 times as hard, because at the end of the day, I'm the only guardian for these 3 children. On paper, I am the only parent that these kids have. And that can be a story for a whole nother day. Ultimately, all they have is me. You know, yes, I have the support of, you know, my sister who takes very good care of Taven. She's his designated caregiver. But then also my parents, you know, my family is very supportive. They love the kids, you know, but it's not the same as having a spouse. It's not the same as their dads being there with them and spending time with them, and me being able to call them up and say, hey, I need help with this, or, you know, pick up, you know, Jace from practice on this day. Can you pick her up on this day? No, like, I'm depending very heavily on my sister and my parents, because that's all I have. Another struggle within itself, because then it's like, okay, I don't want to ask too much of anybody, because at the end of the day, these are my kids, you know. But I've gotten to a point to where I've had to learn to start asking for help, because I am someone who's very like hyper independent, and if I'm not able to do it, it just won't get done. I don't like to let other people down. I don't like to be let down. Over the last 5 years, I've needed a lot of help. Since having Taven, I've needed a lot of help. And like I said, having postpartum depression with Taven, and now having full-blown depression, which since starting therapy over the last few years, I've learned that I've always had depression. Like, going back as far as middle school even, I've always had depression. This isn't anything new. It's just once having kids and getting into like these hard spots, it kind of exasperated the symptoms of it. Just the last 5 years, it just seems like things have gotten really, really hard. My youngest baby has been in the hospital so many times over his little 4 years of life. And at one point, I'll be honest, he has been resuscitated multiple times. And like, that stays with you. That's not something that I can just get over and move on from. And so when somebody's telling me like things happen for a reason, what? No. There have been so many times where I have felt like I was alone. Like I had no one to understand what was going through my mind. And there have been so many times when I've been told, you know, you're over exaggerating. It's not that serious. And when you're a special needs mom, or when you're a mom who has children that seem to be left out, or they're not getting what they need, and you're having to advocate for them, and it seems like you're fighting tooth and nail just to make sure that they have basic things and to have someone listening to you, it is that serious. It really is that serious. When you're at a position where it seems like you're the only person working towards your child's benefit, it's that serious. And so I'm just now kind of finding my footing, and I'm getting to a point to where I'm like, you know what? I'm tired of just existing, you know? I'm tired of just moving day to day and not really living. Like that's how I feel. Like I feel like I'm not living. And I really want that. I want more for myself. I want more for my kids. So ultimately, I want this channel to be kind of a place of solidarity and letting other moms know that, hey, you can do this. You can totally do this. It's hard right now, but it will get better. I want this channel to be a place where I can help educate, but also create community for other single moms, other Black moms, other special needs moms. Honestly, I really enjoy watching this type of content. And I mean, I don't know, maybe there's someone out there who's looking for this very thing. And that's all I'm hoping for. Maybe to be kind of a beacon of light for someone. I think I've covered just about everything. If there's anything that I didn't go over, or if you just have additional questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments. I'm an open book, honestly. I'd be more than happy to share. But thank you so much for watching. Remember to like and subscribe. I'm just so happy to see that our community is growing already. So But yeah, thank you again for watching, and I will see you in our next video. Bye.